British troops arriving in Afghanistan. What is their role? Is it a rescue mission?
No, we are withdrawing. We made that some months ago clear, and the timetable we're working to is obviously the American announced timetable of September the 11th. There was always going to be a phase where you effectively put in logisticians, air movers, command and control personnel, and a force to protect that force. And that is the appropriate moment is to do that now. So that is approximately 600 extra people will be going in. The first elements will be going in by the end of the week. And their job is to make sure that we can continue to process the Afghan interpreters and the wider community that we have an obligation to help draw down some of those people from the embassy that are going to come out as we reduce that footprint. And then lastly, a group of what we call entitled personnel. Those are people who have British passport holders. There is a theoretical number. Those are people such as security guards who might be working for aid agencies, or indeed just British passport holders that we have an obligation to bring out. That requires
essential Brits are coming home.
Yes, that's exactly right. Okay. That could be up to 3,000 people.
Okay. Kandahar and Lashkar, is it your understanding that both have fallen?
Yes, they're pretty much now in the hands of the Taliban as we speak. Kandahar, not so much, but obviously Lashkar as well, yes.
Home to Camp Bastion, of course, where so many British troops were based at the time. How big a mistake was it for the Brits to withdraw from Afghanistan in the manner in which we did?
Well, first of all, we haven't withdrawn at the moment, but I know what you're trying to say. Look, I was public about it, that at the time of the Trump deal with, obviously, the Taliban, I felt that that was a mistake to have done it that way, that, we'll all, as an international community, probably pay the consequences of that. But, when the United States, as the framework nation, took that decision, the way we were all configured, the way we had gone in, meant that we had to leave as well. And, that is a strategic decision that has been made. It is the case, for 20 years we effectively bought peace on our streets because Al-Qaeda was unable to launch plots from Afghanistan in the way it had. And we had obviously invested in education and support for the Afghan government. But, I have been pretty blunt about it publicly, and that's quite a rare thing when it comes to the United States decision. But strategically, it causes a lot of problems. And I think as an international community, it's very difficult for what we're seeing today.
Indeed so. What message does it send? What message do our actions as Britain send to our allies in Asia, in Africa and in the Middle East? Tom Tugendhat, who you'll know, chair of the Foreign Affairs Committee, for the benefit of our viewers, says it shows the world that we are not to be trusted as a nation.
Well, I don't think it's about trust. I think what it is about is that these sorts of problems around the world have to be managed. You can't just fly in, fix something and then expect it all to be fine, and they have to be managed. And management for countries like Afghanistan is not 1 year or 5 years or even 20 years. It's a long-term commitment. And I think that is one of the lessons. I mean, the other lesson that the Taliban learned was that if you use your country to attack another country, just because you have other issues going on, it won't stop you yourself being necessarily removed, or indeed people will take a response to you. And Britain will always retain that capability if the Taliban decide to go back to what they used to do and host Al-Qaeda, then of course the international community have a range of steps that they can take. But I think this is not just about Britain. I think this is the key. Well, we are a military. We have a military power. We saw what happened in 2001. And people forget, in 2001, there were two military operations. There was the operation that went in to take out Al-Qaeda and remove parts of the Taliban from power because of 9/11. And that was done pretty swiftly and pretty quickly. And then, of course, there was the NATO mission and the follow-on mission, which was about stabilization and international development. The first of those operations was a success and ultimately ended in the death of Osama bin Laden. But I think and we'll retain that. But I think the lesson here is also, it's not just about Britain. It's really easy for people to make the narrative of Britain has let down Afghanistan. If you're going to go to Afghanistan, it was very, very clear that you had to go as an international community. And the reason you have to do that is it's not just about military power. It's about political power. It's about soft power. I've seen a number of people saying, oh, Britain can't do it. We could send 10,000 troops tomorrow morning and we could deploy them for a couple of years probably in Afghanistan. But if you're on your own, if you're on your own, you won't get the political leverage of the neighbouring countries that you need. You won't be able to effectively defend your position by saying to the Taliban or whoever it else is, this is the international community concerned, and there are lots of things to be done to put it right. If you are purely a country on your own, the Soviet Union, for example, you then face a different consequence.
OK, so while that diplomacy, I'm sure, will be reignited with the United States, given what we're seeing hour by hour unfolding in Afghanistan, meantime, for now, we have left behind a humanitarian crisis. General Nick Carter, Chief of the Defence Staff, has said women are being brutalised, forced marriages to Taliban fighters, executions in the streets. How can we today, tomorrow, when those troops get there, start to try to prevent that crisis becoming a catastrophe?
Well, I think that's why as I've said earlier, I think that deal that was done in Doha was a rotten deal, I'm on the record as saying, because what it effectively told the Taliban that wasn't winning, that they were winning, and it undermined the government of Afghanistan. And now we're in this position where the Taliban have clearly the momentum across the country. And instead of the political process working, which, of course, if you remember, was what the Doha Agreement was supposed to do. And General Nick Carter was very clear and correct in pointing out that what the political part of the Taliban was saying and what's going on the ground are not matching. And so we are in a difficult position. The United States are leaving. That was announced yesterday. We are leaving alongside them. And that leaves as you say, a very, very big problem on the ground developing with the Taliban, obviously with the momentum. And it's not what we probably would have liked, not what we wanted. I did try after the announcement to see if we could bring together the international community. And I'm afraid most of the international community weren't particularly interested.
So, Defence Secretary, are you saying what's happening at the moment falls to the Americans?
No, it doesn't. In the end, the Afghans, we have put billions of pounds in 20 years. We have sacrificed lives, lots of money, lots of investment in education, 3 million girls educated at school. In the end, after 20 years, it is a perfectly legitimate question to ask, when can Afghan govern themselves? It's quite important that...
Not now, not at the moment is the answer,
well,
isn't it? And the situation is as such that a humanitarian crisis, if nothing else, provides a breeding ground for terrorist entities to re-establish. We remember, of course, that Afghanistan was the country that brought us 9/11. So for people watching this morning who think this is something happening in a country a long, long way away, we saw what can happen when these people become disenfranchised and they send their terrorists to our streets to kill British people. What's our plan B to try to make sure that doesn't happen?
Well, from a purely military point of view, we have capabilities that we can bring to bear from outside into a country if we have the right to do so. And we do have a right. If Britain is under an imminent threat or people are plotting in another country and that country won't take action under international law, we have the ability to do something about that. We do that often all over the world. We do it in certain parts of the world and other failed states. People will cover issues around, I make a periodic announcements about strikes we make on ISIS in places like Syria and Iraq. That's the same time.
About Afghanistan at the moment, you're not worried that could be a scenario as a result of what's happening there at the moment?
I'm absolutely worried that failed states are breeding grounds for those type of people. Of course I'm worried. It's why I said, I felt this was not the right time or decision to make, because, of course, Al-Qaeda will probably come back. Certainly would like that type of breeding ground. That is what we see. Failed states around the world lead to instability, lead to a security threat to us and our interests. We're very clear about that. That's why the West has to learn that you don't fix problems, you manage problems. You have to, go into a country if that's what you're going to do, and you manage it. There's no such thing as an instant fix, which I think is one of the differences between the West and many parts of the world. That's what has... But yes, I'm concerned, but we do have capabilities to protect ourselves even after leaving Afghanistan. OK. Defence Secretary, we're running out of time. I've got another couple of questions for you, if I may. Lord Dannatt, the former Chief of the General Staff, says reversing the cut in foreign aid would help. Last year to Afghanistan, it was $167.5 million. This year, just looked it up this morning, $37.5 million, a cut of
78% in foreign aid to Afghanistan. That would certainly help with any humanitarian crisis. Is that something that the British government should reconsider?
I think the British government's been clear that the cut has been a temporary cut, but also, let's not forget, foreign aid is part of it. But remember, defence delivers huge amounts of what we call soft power. We recently had a team in Sudan building a dam, for example. My soldiers in my department are constantly around the world doing humanitarian support, not pure military support. So, there are a lot of ways to deliver that support. But, one of the challenges now will be in Afghanistan delivering aid. Are we going down to check to the Taliban in future? Especially, and that's something the Taliban seem to have discarded, which is they were clearly desperate for international recognition when they made those choices to allegedly do this deal. But, you don't get international recognition if you are committing those atrocities and the like that we've seen being reported. So the new challenge is, how do we deliver aid?
OK, two very quick questions about stories at home. Gurkhas on the streets of Whitehall, you know that they are starving themselves to death, they say, because they want to have a meeting with you about their pensions. What should we do about it?
Well, first of all, that group of people, I'm very happy to meet any Gurkha. My father fought alongside the Gurkhas in Malaya in the 1950s. So, it is a pretty remarkable group of people. The group of people currently protesting are groups affected by the change by the Labour government in 1997-2003. This was about people who were under a 1947 pension. It's a very small group of Gurkha pensioners. They had different advantages in their pension scheme in that old scheme. That scheme said that you got it after 15 years when a British soldier got it after 22. But there is a difference, and they feel that difference needs to be made up. It's been a long-running position of that group. That's not the same as the Gurkhas of today or the Gurkhas after 2003. They get exactly the same pensions as British serving personnel. But of course, no government of any colour, Labour or Conservative or coalition, has ever retrospectively changed pensions. That's not been the case.
Defence Secretary, I know that, you've said that you'd be willing to meet them. I'm sure that will probably help that situation. So thank you for the clarification on that. Before I let you go, the situation in Plymouth this morning.
Look, it's a tragedy what's happened there. The police are having another significant meeting this morning. We can rule out terrorism from that event. And I think all it does, it goes to underline the importance of issues such as gun control, but also, what's happening in people's homes up and down the country. It's really 4 million our local police forces, so they could be better armed to deal with it. But look, overall, my thoughts are with the tragic loss of life and the people who've, families who've lost loved ones today. The police have resolved the situation, is my understanding, and we can rule out terrorism.